Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, viernes, el 21 de octubre. You guys had 2 assignments due for today. Quizlet practice for Chapter 1B. As I sent out in an announcement, many of you had indicated an inability to do the, I think it was the Learn activity. One of the 3 activities asked you to pay for a premium subscription. You obviously do not need to do that. And so just submit the other 2 that you were successfully able to do. I believe it's the flashcards and the match were the 2 activities that you should have been able to do without any sort of membership or premium access. The other assignment, which you definitely didn't need premium access for, were core workbook pages 16 and 17, and then the guided workbook page 33. You guys can check out the video from last class for how to go about all of these assignments. No homework for the weekend. Enjoy y'all's weekend. Daily objective for today. Exchange info about what you do after school. And your warm-up question for today, ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? It's asking, what are you going to do this weekend? What do you got going on this weekend? So for this question, write 2 activities that you plan to do this weekend in the yo form using the simple future tense as outlined on page 43 of the textbook. So this is what we went over last class, starting Chapter 1B. Chapter 1B asking or centered around your extracurricular involvement, things you do after school, extracurricular and otherwise. So we have places that we frequent after school, sports that you may play, either club or recreational or for the school, and then just general activities, leisure activities there. That's on page 42. And on page 43, we have the verb ir that we went over together. Ir is the verb to go, and it can be used in this construction called the simple future. It has 3 parts to it. Ir, conjugated in the present tense, according to the subject, to the person who's speaking or we're referring to. A, the preposition to, and then infinitive is whatever it is you're going to do, right? Hablar por teléfono, caminar, dormir, escuchar música, correr, hacer ejercicio. These are all infinitives that you would put here to indicate what it is you're going to do. So back to our warm-up, using page 43 of the textbook, indicate 2 things you're going to do this weekend. So for example, este fin de semana, yo voy being the yo form of the verb ir. That's how we got voy, to say I am going to. Yo voy a ver la televisión. I am going to watch TV. That's why we don't conjugate that second verb. That second verb stays in the infinitive, but ir conjugates according to the person we're talking about. So voy a ver la televisión y pasar tiempo con amigos. I'm going to watch TV and spend time with friends. And then you're going to ask that question, ¿Qué vas a hacer este fin de semana? To 2 classmates. And then as we always do, jot down for each classmate 1 activity that they plan to do this weekend. Este fin de semana, meaning this weekend, Sebastián va a tocar la guitarra y ir al cine. Va, because you're talking about él or ella, he or she, right? Use the él, ella form when you're talking about your classmates. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the agenda for today. We're going to review the communication objectives for this chapter on page 44. Take a look at the extracurricular vocabulary on pages 46 and 47, and you'll add those to your notebooks today. Read through the script, the video historia después de las clases, and then comprehension questions that go along with that script are on page 49. And then actually we're going to not do 4 and 6, we're going to do 4 and 5. Forgive me, I thought I had changed that. 6 I want to make sure we do together in class. 4 and 5 are a good review of the vocabulario and contexto. 6, a little bit more advanced, so we'll do that together in class. So let's go ahead and take a look at the communication objectives. The communication objectives that are on page 44. Alright, so by the end of this chapter, you should be able to, or you will be able to, listen and read about students' extracurricular activities, talk and write about your own, and exchange that information with your classmates, with anyone you come across with, to employ the language in this particular context as it relates to your extracurricular involvement. We'll talk about, in terms of the culture, the differences between school life in the States and Spain. Talked a little bit about school life in Latin America when we watched the film Machuca, but we'll compare it to the continent of Europe, and then compare extracurricular activities, sports, and dance in the United States as opposed to Latin America in terms of what opportunities are available in America Latina. So what's next? We're going to go over the key vocabulary on pages 46 and 47. Vocabulario en contexto. Everything that's highlighted and in bold is a key vocabulary term, especially the terms that have the pictures next to them. These are all extracurricular activities, whether they're fine arts, performing arts, sports, etc. A lot of them are cognates, meaning that they're words that look like, sound like, and have the same meaning in English as well. And they continue on page 47, all the way there toward the bottom of page 47. What I would recommend that you all do is to go to the glossary at the very end of the chapter. That's on page 68. The workbook, which you may or may not have, has a page where you can organize this vocabulary, or if you want, you can just copy this page down into your notebooks, and it's already organized for you. If you prefer to make flashcards, certainly you can do that. And then these are all the terms that we went over in Quizlet. So if you prefer to utilize Quizlet as a space to organize your vocabulary, you can do that as well. But this is the vocabulary that you're responsible for this chapter. To talk about extracurricular activities, nouns for extracurricular activities, different types, for sports, for the performing arts, actions, verbs that we would associate with extracurriculars, and then in internet activities as well. These other words are prepositions and other nouns that aren't specific to this chapter. They could apply to just about any context. And then these grammatical constructions we'll get to a little bit later on this chapter. We actually talked about it briefly at the beginning of the year to indicate how long you've been doing something, an extracurricular activity or a hobby or a sport. We'll talk about that grammatical construction. And then making comparisons as well. Comparisons of equality. And I think we'll go over a little bit of comparisons of inequality too. Saber and conocer both mean to know. And we'll finish off this chapter by talking about in what situations we would use each. Alright, so that's the key vocabulary on pages 46 and 47, vocabulario en contexto. Next, you guys are going to take a look at the script on pages 48 and 49. for the video Después de las clases. ¿En qué actividades extracurriculares participan Esteban y sus amigos? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the comprehension questions for this video. And you guys are going to answer these in full, complete sentences. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Let's take a look at the questions. And this is comprendiste. The comprendiste questions on page 49. You guys are going to do these in your notebooks as part of your notes for today. ¿Dónde están los estudiantes? ¿Y de qué hablan? ¿En qué actividad participa Esteban? ¿Cuánto tiempo hace que es miembro? ¿Cuáles son las actividades extracurriculares de Lisa? So the first thing we need to do is we need to identify what interrogatives are being used in each of these questions. If you look at your notes from the very beginning of the year, we talked about different interrogatives being who, what, when, where, why, and how. WH words, we also refer to them as in English. And so if you can identify the interrogative that's being used, then it makes it a lot easier to, one, understand the question, and two, understand what kind of information you're going to be looking for. So I'm just pulling up the interrogatives that we looked at earlier this year. I'm in the Para Empezar pages in the textbook. And on page, I want to say it's 9. Here we are, 10. You have the different interrogatives. So let's just do a quick review of what these are asking again. ¿Dónde and a dónde are asking where. So we know that it's referring to a location, right? Similar to the locations that are on page 42 that we were talking about. La biblioteca, el cine, el parque, la escuela, etc. ¿Cómo is asking how. So this is probably one of the more difficult questions to answer. How or what is a bit more of an articulate response. We're looking for some sort of explanation when we ask ¿cómo? ¿Cuál or cuáles being the plural form of cuál is asking which. So we're looking to identify usually a noun, a person, place, or thing. ¿Cuándo is asking when. So a reference to time, a time of the day, a time of the year, a season, a month, etc. ¿Cuánto is referring to how much or how many. So we're looking for quantity, right? Looking for a number of people or a number of items. ¿Por qué meaning why. So similar to cómo, looking for a little bit more of an explanation, perhaps a paraphrase from the script. And then quién is who. So we're looking for a person. And qué is what, synonymous with cómo meaning what or how. That maybe not as much of an explanation, could be just a simple identification of someone or something, like cuál, where you're just identifying someone or something that's being asked about. So those are our interrogatives. Now we can go back to the questions on page 49 and have a better understanding of what the question is asking, and then how to, or what kind of information we need to look for in the script. So let's take a look again. ¿Dónde están los estudiantes y de qué hablan? Where are the students and what are they talking about? So I want you to answer in complete sentences. And to do that, utilize what's in the question to begin your response. We've done this on a number of occasions, and it should start to become just kind of second nature. So begin first with the subject, which is los estudiantes. Identify the verb that is being used in the question. That would be están. And there you have the beginning of your response. Los estudiantes están, and then donde is asking where, so we just need to find that answer. You don't even need to read to know the answer. En el gimnasio, ¿cierto? Los estudiantes están en el gimnasio. Los estudiantes están en el gimnasio. Or en la escuela, if you want to be more general. ¿De qué hablan? What are they talking about? A ver, ¿de qué hablan? Let's go to number 2. Bueno, los estudiantes hablan de las actividades extracurriculares, ¿cierto? They're talking about their different extracurricular activities. That's the topic for the chapter. So the answer, again, the subject would be los estudiantes. Hablan would be our verb. Los estudiantes hablan de las actividades extracurriculares. So that's what you're doing. You're taking the subject in the question, make that the beginning of your response, continue with the verb, and then find the answer according to the interrogative. Those interrogatives, again, were on page 10. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the questions. ¿En qué actividad participa Esteban? ¿Y cuánto tiempo hace que es miembro? ¿Cuánto tiempo hace? That was one of the grammar constructions on page 60, or 68 rather, in the glossary that we were looking at. We're going to look at later this chapter. This is asking how long. How long has Esteban been a member of whatever activity he participates in? This one's a little bit hard to respond to in a complete sentence for number 2. Number 1, or the first part of number 2, you can do in a complete sentence. But for the second part, just try to find that quantity, that amount of time. And then we'll look at how to put that in a complete sentence later on in this chapter. So for the second part of number 2, just the amount of time. Doesn't need to be in a full complete sentence. Number 3, ¿cuáles son las actividades extracurriculares de Lisa? What extracurricular activities does Lisa participate in? And you can formulate your response, if it's easier, similar to how you did for number 2. Lisa participa in, and then the extracurriculars, right? ¿Qué prefiere hacer Angélica? What does Angélica prefer to do? Angélica prefiere ¿qué? ¿Qué prefiere? What does she prefer? ¿Por qué trabaja Pedro? Why does Pedro work? Trabajar is the verb to work. So we can paraphrase from the text, just pull a fragment from the script that'll probably give you the answer for that. And then number 6, ¿qué lecciones toma Pedro? ¿Dónde y es bueno? What lessons does Pedro take? Where? And is he any good? And again, that you can probably find and pull directly from the text. All right, that's the comprendiste questions. And then finally, exercises 4 and 5 on page 50, vocabulario en uso. So for exercise 4, I ask you to complete the phrases, completa las frases con la palabra apropiada. Just pick whichever of those 2 verbs you think makes the most, not 2 verbs rather, 2 words that you think make the best sense based upon the context. Page 68 of the textbook, gives you the glossary again if you need to go back and take a look at some of that key vocab. Let's do the first three together. Mis amigos y yo participamos en muchas actividades extracurriculares. Participamos because we're talking about extracurricular activities. Volvemos, volver is the verb to return. It doesn't really make sense in this context. Mi amiga Raquel tiene una buena... And then we're not really quite sure either one of these could really work, but we need to read a little bit further along to have a better idea. Por eso, canta, Raquel canta en el coro. Coro is choir, and the key word here is canta, the verb cantar, which is to sing. So we know it must be coro, because coro is choir and goes along well with cantar, and voz is voice. So we know that that's going to be the answer rather than reunión, which is a reunion or a meeting. So based on the context, pick the correct word that best fits, and then for number 5, you're going to choose the key vocabulary word that describes a person, and most of those are on page 46. Whether it's animador, animadora, which is a cheerleader, músico, música, which is a musician, cantante, el or la cantante, it's just masculine or feminine, the only difference there, right? Is a singer. Bailarín or bailarina is a dancer. And then fotógrafo, fotógrafa is a photographer. So you're going to pick one of those nouns that best fits the description for exercise 5. Let's take a look at exercise 5. The first couple we'll do together. Lee estas descripciones. Para cada una, escribe la palabra que corresponde a la descripción. For each of the descriptions, write the word, again from page 46, that corresponds to the description. Number 1, saca fotos como pasatiempo o para su trabajo. So this person takes pictures as a hobby. Pasatiempo is a hobby or pastime, literally, or for their work. So going back to page 46, that would be un or una fotógrafo, fotógrafa. It's all you need to put for number 1. El fotógrafo or la fotógrafa. Either one would work just fine. Pretty straightforward for 5. Take a look at the key words there, some of them including vocabulary from pages 46 and 47. And then pick the either profession or hobby, extracurricular, if you will, from page 46 that describes one of the individuals. Músico, fotógrafo, bailarín, cantante, etc. And that is it for today, y'all. Sorry for such a long video there. But that concludes your learning activities for today. No homework at all due next class. Make sure you guys have the Quizlet practice and the workbook pages submitted. Y nos vemos en clase. Hasta luego.